Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara. It is the 17th of December. Welcome. Only a few more days left till Christmas and the New Year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, number of things going on today. Welcome, everybody. It's 17th of December. And welcome to Talking Niagara, our talk show, giving our opinion upon the news and everything impacting Niagara. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the Seaway is saying, the St. Lawrence Seaway is saying that traffic could be doubled with government investment, right? And yes, I accept it probably could. We probably could do a heck of a lot better with Seaway traffic. But
this is in regards to an opinion letter sent to the government by sort of marine officials. Basically, the marine industry is calling the federal government to invest in the St. Lawrence, and it's come up with letters and opinions to cite that. And the federal government is focused on, and of course it's answered by the government. But what they're saying is, now it wasn't too long ago where people thought that the Welland Canal had been reduced in effectiveness. It was an old-fashioned way of transporting goods, and it had diminished returns, and that it would become sort of a middle of the road transportation network for goods and everything. That's changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
The Welland Canal becomes even more important nowadays than it had been. So where it was thought to be sort of hit its plateau, and the transportation network through it would be just a sort of a moderate flow of goods, and not really increase very much. In fact, if anything, decrease. Well, we find the opposite. We find a demand.
They're basically saying that the Seaway. Yeah, and they're basically saying that currently the Seaway is operating at 50% of its potential, maybe even less.
Yeah, which was shocking to me, thinking of that. Why is it? It doesn't go into saying why it is, because the locks go up and down at a certain rate.
Yeah.
What are they saying? What they are saying is things like some of the ships can have bigger container capacity. We know that the ships can't be any longer, that the locks are made for about a 750-foot ship, basically.
Yeah, but you could probably put bigger, not bigger, you could probably put more ships through the canal system.
Well, yeah, that's what they're claiming. Can we, though?
Well, how
and
often?
That would be what would be stopping them currently from doing that? And that's my question here.
Well, there's a couple.
They say that because it's only about 50% capacity. Well, why is it only 50% capacity when you don't seem to have the boats lined up to go in and out at different times? But if it's only 50% capacity, where's the other 50% going to come from? Are they saying that if they can do more, it will attract more commerce, or they anticipate that they could anticipate more commerce? So it's not very clear why it's underutilized.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of things. It's like, so when I first read this, they're basically saying that it's upon current citing that current operations are below capacity and international ports are modernizing. Yeah, that's true. And so are these ports. We're doing a lot more. We're doing containers up the Seaway now, aren't we?
What do you mean? They've been putting up containers through the Seaway for decades. What do you mean?
Exactly. So, what they're doing now is they're effectively taking off containers from transatlantic ships, put them on St. Lawrence Seaway ships, and take them all the way up to, to Minnesota,
all the way over to Duluth in the farthest reaches of the
yeah,
the Great Lakes. Yeah.
yeah.
So from Duluth to Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, in all around there. But the
and once you take containers, they're fairly rapidly on-off type things, aren't they? And they can be moved. They can be moved essentially from ship to truck to deliver to wherever, almost, right?
So since this is already happening, what is it that's reducing the capacity?
Okay,
or in their particular case?
Yeah.
Well, if this is already happening, it's already happening, and it has happened for a very long time. How does it affect? Why is it underutilized?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Yeah. And how are they going to actually, and they're talking about requirement for more government investment. In some respects, when you've got a successful piece of infrastructure like this, I wonder, why do we need, why does it have to be government investment, purely government investment? Why can't it be a private-public partnership or something like that?
Well, it probably is. They're asking, of course, the government, and of course all the respective people that have signed on to this letter, the different industries and so on, feel that the Welland Canal is underutilized and can be maintained, and extensions of seasons. And that was a big thing for me. Is I had wondered that in the past, why they didn't extend the seasons with icebreakers. Well, that's what they're exactly asking for now. They're asking for extension of the Seaway season with icebreakers. In other words, to make it a 10-month season, basically. Can you imagine that? Only maybe January and February, where the Seaway is closed, and then icebreakers opening it up for the beginning and to the end of the winter. Maybe that would extend the season. But there's a bunch of different things here. One is an extension of the season, and they noticed that in the U.S. side, there's a lot of investment in port facilities in and around the Great Lakes, which would mean that they are being prepared for more commerce. And are we prepared for that in our sort of very ancient Welland Canal? That canal started up in 1930. You know what I mean? So it is now nearly 100 years old, and
at some point
it needs some.
This is
like this particular incarnation of the Seaway.
This is the fourth incarnation, isn't it? This is the fourth incarnation of the Welland Canal, right?
Yes, and this incarnation is 95 years old now.
Yeah, and the other question about this, it's already been put up. One of the questions that's already been put up, which would deem an end to this incarnation, is the fact that they're talking about ships on the St. Lawrence Seaway now going up to about 1,500 foot long.
That's possible, but it can't be possible going
without
into the Great Lakes.
The canal. Yeah,
I mentioned many times on here that there's our lakers in anywhere from Lake Erie west that are 1,000-footers.
Yeah,
and they're very efficient, but they can't get through the Welland Canal, so you have to reduce your load to get through the Welland Canal. How can they expand the Welland Canal to take 1,000-footers or 1,200 footers? Who knows? Do we really need that kind of capacity? And remember the bulk cargo that comes out of there. You were talking about container, but a big issue with international trades, bulk cargo like wheat and potash and coal and iron and all of those things, like the Edmund Fitzgerald was hauling iron. You know what I mean? When it went down. So these are the bulk carriers that could be big, and those could be making a big difference because, of course, Canada has all kinds of material that can be sent in bulk. And of course, we talked about potash over and over lately because of of the beloved leader down south, thinking
Well,
potash.
actually, and
We're,
changing
we're leveraging potash on them. Yeah.
and changing to a fifth incarnation of the Welland Canal is really quite tough, because where would you put the new Welland Canal? For example, going through that section between St. Catharines and Thorold, etc. There's not much space anymore. It's all been, the spare land there has all been taken up. It's all now housing or industry or something.
The only thing they could do is make the locks bigger, and that's they would have to do that piecemeal. They would have to go in there hard and fast during the off season and build longer docks, longer locks, and they may even be able to facilitate locks that are various sizes. Like you might be able to have a dual purpose lock. It could be 720 feet long, or it could be over 1,000 feet long. But the thing is, they're not talking about the locks getting any bigger in this article. They're talking about moving more cargo through it and making it more efficient as it is. And they say it's underutilized as it is.
Well, yeah, and okay, so if it becomes properly utilized, part of that would actually mean that you would have to think about alternate routes for trains and road traffic.
I don't know exactly what they would have to do. I know, for instance, certain industries like to be close to the canal because they can load and unload their cargo.
Well, I think that. That's a great idea.
I think the battery separator in Port Colborne, part of the reason why it is there is because of its proximity to the canal. And but I mean, they go on to say that the canal is underutilized, as we said earlier. How can we utilize it more effectively? They're talking about extending the season and making it more efficient, but they don't make the case for why it is underutilized. They say it is. They don't say this is how we can increase it as it is. How can we more maximize the trade that goes through the Welland Canal? And to me, that's a great thing. The more trade that goes through the Welland Canal, the better our economy is.
You see, if you go to the Welland Canal, if you were to just go down, let's say drive down Lundy's Lane to the Allenberg Bridge, the Allenberg Bridge, and you were to spend a day there just observing the canal, how frequently are boats coming through? Right,
I don't know.
I've seen a time when I was queued up at the Allenberg Bridge, and they put two boats coming through, one after another.
And you were cursing the whole way, right?
It was a bit of a shock, because you kind of go, I'm expecting the bridge to come down, and no, there's another ship coming through.
Well, they have to coordinate the ships going through, of course.
Yeah.
And there's only so much room for them, and because they're going to be dropping the water levels, et cetera, and the ships, they don't want them to be in line for too long. We see them backed up at times when you go down Lake Ontario or something like that along the QE. You can see all the ships backed up there.
Yeah,
ready to go through the canal.
Yeah,
and you can see it on the Fort Erie, on the Erie side as well. So if they're backed up, how can that be more effectively utilized? They don't really describe that.
Well, I would say
it can be more utilized. I mean, we can guess all day long that they're not putting enough ships through at a quicker pace, but they're not describing how the canal is underutilized.
Yeah, and part of that, if you're going to put more ships through at a quicker pace, is actually about probably moving to computerized control. And they probably have certain amount of computerized control, but probably what I'm really talking about there would be going fully automated. The bridges go up and down according to computer control systems, and everybody's notified well in advance.
I think they already do that.
They already do, but
remember, these are slow
how
moving craft.
I know
It's
they
not
are.
like they're not exactly like a street corner where they have signal lights, and you might want to most effectively put signal lights. These are huge crafts that move
I know.
slowly,
And
so to be able to time them right is not a big issue here. And
again, I know
I don't
they've
think
been doing
computerization has much to do with it. It has capacity. Where's that capacity going to come from? If they say it's underutilized, well, where is it underutilized? Where is the missing capacity?
Well, and that time
They are saying they're saying to extend the season, et cetera, et cetera. That might motivate more trade, but how is it underutilized? And we're just guessing here. So if they've made this case, we can really utilize this. This is like 50% underutilized. We can get more out of it. We can put more containers on each ship. For one thing, that's one of the things they're saying. Is that actually even safe if they can put more containers on each ship, and then extend the seasons with icebreakers and things of that kind? Is it going to invite more trade, or is it just speculation?
Yeah, it's a fair question. And you see, what they're saying here is season extension fine, but they're also saying infrastructure and technology, funding for infrastructure, digital platforms, decarbonization, and automation is needed to compete with global ports.
Yeah, the decarbonization thing, I think they just throw that in there. But we see big ports like Rotterdam and Amsterdam. They mention them, Rotterdam and Amsterdam, and they imply that there is a fierce competition for ports and port facilities and improving ports all over the world. And they imply that this is because of perceived fierce competition in trade. Now, if you look at and of course, obviously, we want to tap into that. We want to throw more ships towards Rotterdam and Amsterdam, the big ports in Europe. Obviously, we do. Maybe even want to, whatever. So we want them to get this material out there. But as I keep coming back to, they don't really tell you that where the lost capacity is, except for saying they could have more extended seasons or larger amounts of container per ship.
Yeah. But you could also sit down there and observe the Welland Canal, as I was just describing, and you can see times when there's not a ship, an hour goes by and there's no ship come through.
Yeah, but you can't create them out of air. If a ship wanted to come through at that particular time, it would be there.
But again, you can go to the QEW and you can observe them stacked up, waiting to come into the canal.
Yeah, but later in the season, there's less and less of them because they're tying up getting their stuff out for the end of the season. So there obviously would be less, or maybe sometimes even more, if there's been if they have to rush to get the stuff out because there's been whatever. But basically, what else do we got? Because kind of flogged this one to death.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. That's fine. Oh God, we've got a heck of a lot of comments there on this particular one.
Oh, good.
Pardon me?
That's good.
Right. We've got 36 comments through here.
Thank you very much, everyone.
If food prices doubled tomorrow, would we face food insecurity? I don't know what that's got to do with the Welland Canal.
Well, actually, because foodstuffs move through the Welland Canal, don't they?
I know, but yeah. Okay. So I stock up in case, but yes, if prices change, it'd be a problem. Yeah. Okay. It's a different. They tore down the fruit farms for vineyards, closed the canneries. Now no food. Okay, fair comment. Food prices will continue to rise. It's what happens. 50% of the population can't afford food. Right. I didn't call. I didn't call this food. Okay. Be prepared for all be prepared at all times. Okay. Um, Major population centers will be increasingly difficult to navigate, and that's true. And that's actually one of the things I was saying. One of the things I noted with some of the other canals, Mexico's talking about doing a canal, and they're talking about getting it through lesser population zones.
Well, actually, Mexico is completely different because it's not a canal. Basically, what it is, it's a rail cars where you take a ship, unload it completely, move everything to the other side, to the Caribbean side from the Pacific, and load up another ship. And they can do that because there's a pretty flat area of Mexico where they can do that. So it's not going to be a canal cut in. It's going to be you're going to be able to quickly transport your containers from one ship to a ship on the other side of the peninsula. Whereas now in Panama, you actually take your whole ship from the Pacific to the Caribbean side and then into the Atlantic. But in this particular case, it's a completely different idea. And what the Mexicans have thought of doing too is putting a lot of their industry along this corridor from the Pacific to the Caribbean, so that they can. It's an easy access for them for international markets, either going to the Pacific or the Atlantic.
Yeah,
and it's a huge rail corridor, basically what it is, and it's nothing new. They had this before the canal, before the Panama Canal. They had already a transportation corridor through there many years ago, before the Panama Canal, as did Nicaragua have a transportation area too. Now Nicaragua is talking about making a whole brand new canal that goes from the Pacific to the Caribbean, but that seems to be locked up in the Chinese. A lot of the Chinese were thinking of investing in that, but that's sort of lost right now. But the Mexican one is full steam ahead, and we should see that come into fruition within the next 10 years.
Well, full steam ahead being a rail thing. One of the things Mike is saying here with his comments is industry in Canada would sure be a case for increasing the size of the locks, I'm presuming. All right.
Yeah, it would be. It would be an incredible endeavor to do. It would take massive amounts of investment to and to make the locks bigger to, let's say, 1,000-footers. I don't think you're going to get anything bigger than 1,000-footer through there, but it would be an enormous investment and an enormous. You would definitely have to have a very good business case to move forward with expenses of that kind. But right now, what they're talking about is increasing the capacity for the canal as it is.
Yeah,
as it is. Can they move more goods? Can they move them for an extended period of time?
Yep. Okay. And if my feeling about that is, if you're going to be expanding the size of the locks, you're probably going to do them one lock per year, aren't you?
Yes, I've worked on the canal. I worked 7 different seasons on the canals, and believe me, it is a huge endeavor to do the smallest of jobs there. Because of everything's big, everything's heavy, everything's old. And they've spent a lot of money shoring up the walls of the canal over the years, too, as well. So there's a lot of question marks here, and it's a massive investment. Let's put it that way. And are you going to interfere? Are you going to interfere with the flow?
And especially,
can you twin it? Yeah, can you twin the canal?
Thorold steps are the hard one, aren't they? The thorold steps are the hard one, because you'd have to expand each of the 5 steps in order to make that work, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it would be. To lengthen the locks of that kind. I think pretty much basically what they're talking about, though, that is pie in the sky right now, future kind of thinking.
I know.
Right now, they just want to be able to utilize the canal as it is more effectively.
Yeah. Oh, and then it was the other thing that Mike was saying is the additional we'd have to probably have to put additional tunnels in there.
Tunnels for boats. Yeah, we'll have. we can have our ships now as submarines, cargo submarines.
I mean tunnels for the surrounding traffic rail.
I know, but I thought I'd be facetious. Yeah,
I thought so. I thought so. On the West Coast, flooding for every 10 degrees centigrade of warming, 0.1 centigrade of warming, atmosphere holds on. It's okay. We're not talking about climate change here, but
well, yeah, they're talking. Well, one of the things they want to do with the canal, if we want to get back to that, is to decarbonize it, and it would have a kind of an indirect effect on what he's talking about. He's talking about atmospheric rivers, basically, that have been hitting the West Coast, and that's a phenomenon that's rather new. And one day we can.
I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not saying it isn't an important phenomenon, Dave. I'm just saying it's. I'm not so sure how it impacts that particular discussion.
Right? Article. No, I suppose you'd like us to bring that up one time. Maybe we will.
Yeah,
we can discuss that next week.
We can go look for that. Okay, moving on. Israel is preparing largest ever act of what's called archeological cleansing. I thought when I heard this, I thought, whoa, really? Israel has actually been one of the has had a good reputation for actually not interfering with the archaeology in the past. Things are different.
No, it hasn't. The Israeli government from the very beginning has tried to erase the memory of Palestinian settlements, Palestinian cities. It's changed the names of, I think, Jaffa to Haifa. It's changed names of towns and villages. What they've done with old villages, Palestinian villages that they forced the people off of, what they do is they put a park on it, they pave it over, they put a park on it. They try to obscure it. They change the names of it, the names that have been there for like 2,000 years. They change the names to ones that so that they can obscure the Palestinian existence. In this particular article, it talks about how our Israeli archaeology is now part of this effort to erase the memory of the Palestinian people. One of the things they do, we keep hearing in the news, if you want to listen to the news, is they take out 1,000-year-old olive trees, thousands of them. In this particular case, they're going after a Palestinian village. A Palestinian village that's a very, very old village that has had archaeological distinctions all the way down to the Iron Age, or maybe even before that into the Bronze Age. It have to be because it has like one of King Ahab's palaces or something in there. And it's kind of like on a hill. So what the archaeologists come in and say, well, you know what? Guess what? We're going to appropriate this for archaeological reasons. It's archaeological wonderland, so we're going to appropriate it. That means we're going to have to take these 450 acres of olive trees, and guess what's going to happen to them? They're 1,000-year-old, so we're going to cut them down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to erase the memory of this place. We're going to get rid of you. You're going to go. We're going to take away your livelihood, the olive trees and the wild chicory trees and the other things, because the Palestinians are very attached to the land because they farm it. They farm it, and they have been doing that for 2,000 years, basically. So what they're saying is basically, we're going to make it impossible for you to live here. And you're a Christian Palestinian, so it doesn't make a difference to us if you're a Muslim or Christian Palestinian. We're going to get rid of you. And what happens here is Jewish populations that come in from Europe, from Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, whatever, come along and say, well, this is our historic land. We're not going anywhere. You got to leave. I don't care if you've been living here for 2,000 years, you and your families. I don't care if you're Christian or a Muslim. To us doesn't make any difference. The fact is, you're not Jewish. Get out. Get the heck out. And this is, and it's working. It's working because they don't let any solid piece of the East Bank or the West Bank to stay solid. So when they put their settlements in, they put it in pockets here and there and everywhere, and then squeeze from these pockets outward and push Palestinians off their land. And in this particular case, they use the excuse of archaeology, which they have done in other places. There is a massive sort of, you can look it up. You can look it up how Israel tries to erase the Palestinian memory or even the memory of other cultures that have been there. Now, there's been a Byzantine church there in this particular village, Sebastia. Sebastia is the village's name.
Yeah.
And so they got to get rid of that church. They got to they got to erase the memory of the Byzantine Christians that used to live there for hundreds of years, because they don't want any attachment anyone has to the land any way possible. Like I said, they've built up. What they've done is they've taken land that's being disputed and then reforested it to disguise the villages that used to be there. And so when people claim Palestinians want right of return, there's nowhere to return to.
Yeah. Well, but one of the things here they're saying is this Iron Age city of Samaria was actually in this particular site, Sebastia, and that was the capital of the ancient kingdom of Israel, and it contains the remnants of Ahab's palace, which was unearthed in the 30s. So in the 1st century BCE, Herod of the kingdom of Judea rebuilt the city, leaving a temple honoring his friend Roman Emperor Augustus near the older ruins, and a well-preserved Roman theatre, Byzantine church, and other antiques have also been uncovered in the area. That's a pretty that in and of itself is a pretty historic piece of information.
Yeah, it is. And what they're going to do is kind of bulldoze it. And they're using, at the very same time, it talks about here that the Israeli archaeologists went to a convention basically in the United States where there's the I think there's a name for it. The archaeology oversees American School of
American Society of Overseas Research.
Research, yeah. Now, basically, what archaeology is you don't mess up. You do not obliterate. You have to move carefully. You can't obliterate past cultures. You can't do any of that. You have to move very carefully and recognize each layer of archaeological findings. You do that. However, that's not what is being done in Israel. Even though these archaeologists have come to this convention, they don't work with the same rules. As a matter of fact, they're using their skills to obliterate the archaeology of the area and transition it to something they would like better.
Yeah,
like before they obliterate the Palestinian or any other. We find that Christian sites in East Jerusalem are under pressure. Like you have, I think you've got a Muslim quarter, a Jewish quarter, Armenian, Orthodox. Anyway, the sector, they're all under attack by the Jewish state and the settler movement, and they're trying to obliterate, or they're using archaeology in Jerusalem, in the old city of Jerusalem, to get rid of people. That's basically what they do. Oh, well, this is archaeologically significant, so you're going to have to leave so we can do this important archaeological work. But what it's really doing is obliterating the old archaeology, and then all of a sudden, guess what? A Jewish family now has this particular area. They now build a house there.
Well, and this whole question about
push the Palestinians out, says for archaeology, and then turn it around and give it to a Jewish family.
Yeah, but this whole question about first century, for example, first century BCE, King Herod and the kingdom of Judea rebuilding the city, of Samaria, that's, that has Christian impact as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, here's on November 19th, Israel's civil administration announced plans to expropriate
Yeah,
550 of Sebastia's private plots,
yeah,
approximately 1,800 or about 450 acres of land that have been central to the village's livelihood, cultural heritage, and identity for centuries. Remember, this is a Christian village, Palestinian Christian village, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so residents say that the project will devastate local agriculture, including destroying 3,000 olive trees, some of which are hundreds of years old.
yeah,
And anyway, so they're just going to use that excuse to push those people off their land, make it impossible for them to make a living. Oh, well, you can't farm your olive trees anymore because you know what? This is archeologically significant land. And then you say, well, where am I supposed to get my living from? Well, that's your problem. Too bad. But we're going to have to use this. That's just your problem. And
yeah,
the fact of the matter is, the Israeli government is a brutal authoritarian government when it comes to the Palestinians. There, on paper, there is appeals that the Palestinians can make, but they never go through. Never. It's just like every time a Palestinian is killed by a soldier that's just taking aim at someone and it's brought up to the IDF, they always find a reason why it was, the 10-year-old's fault for getting shot, kind of thing.
yeah,
And there is never any consequences for any. And if there is, it's kind of like in the front door and out the back. Oh
yeah,
my, you did something bad. Here, you better spend 10 minutes in jail and go out the back door. It's a brutal, crushing thing. And if you want to, the Jewish equivalent to Hamas and Hezbollah is the settler movement. They are brutal. They are violent. They are ideologically driven. They would love to kill every Palestinian, but in the meantime, they can't do that. So they're trying to force them off their land slowly but surely, inch by inch, and it's working because we in the West turn the other way and accept Israel as a nation of a democracy, which it is not. It's not a democracy for the people it occupies, that's for sure.
no, yeah. And if you're forced off your land, that's problematic. And erasing architect, the history is also, archaeological history is also a crime as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Israel does not think it's big enough. It did not think it was big enough when it had the partition in 1948, so it expanded and pushed the Palestinians out of the land they were supposed to have. And then they decided they're not big enough, and so they have this Greater Israel project where everything from the Jordan River to the sea is going to be Israeli. That means every Palestinian is going to be booted out of the West Bank and Gaza. And they also want a piece of Syria. Well, they already got the Golan Heights, and they want a little bit more of Syria.
Oh, they'll be taking more of that. Yeah,
and
they'll be taking more of that.
Eventually, they want the Sinai.
And in fact, actually, I saw an ancient map of Israel, the Kingdom of Israel, compared to the modern Israeli border, and the whole ancient Kingdom of Israel was much further north than the current one.
That's at its biggest extension, though. Under King David, and possibly between Saul and David, and maybe Solomon, they expanded, and that's because the powers around them became weak. The Egyptian and the Hittite, and that became weak, possibly because of the actions of the Sea Peoples. But that's around 1000 AD, basically. Israel was never that big even at its most extended point. And
Granted, yeah.
but it's where it is today is basically what Israel used to be, the Samaria, the Israel, the lost tribes, and all that stuff. So it's always been fluid. There's always been all kinds of different people moving through there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And most of the Palestinians today, probably, if you check their DNA, would match up with Palestinian Jews too, because there are probably most of them were converts from Judaism to Islam, or converts from Christianity to Islam.
Yeah, absolutely, more than likely, and conversion actually in that area was quite large. And you only have to follow the history of what happened in the Islamic invasion of that area to know that there was thousands of converts, if not millions.
Yeah, and a lot of times it wasn't immediate, but sometimes it was like, for instance, if you were a Muslim, you couldn't be a slave. You couldn't be put into a slave. So people, marginal people, would definitely see that as an advantage.
It's a reason to convert. Yeah.
And Jewish populations wouldn't see a whole lot of difference between Islam and Judaism. They have similar dietary laws. They point at, in the early days of Islam, they pointed to Jerusalem to pray. Now they point to Mecca, and Jews point to Jerusalem to pray 3 times a day, and Muslims do 5 times a day to Mecca. So you see, it's very, very similar. They have the same prophets.
A lot of similarities.
So we don't redeem. We don't follow. We all our Old Testament prophets, like Abraham and Noah, are just curiosities to us, but they're much more important in the Jewish and Islamic faiths.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely, they are. Yeah. All right. Let's move on from that one. And Skate Canada is to stop holding national and international events in Alberta.
Yes, and that's because the Albertans have used a notwithstanding clause to prevent trans athletes from competing in skating events or any athletic event. And this is kind of very, very controversial, of course, because the Olympics and other skating authorities around the world have accepted transgender athletes, provided they have a certain criteria, meet a certain criteria about how much testosterone is in their blood and how much of this they have to transition, claim that they're females, and then demonstrate that their testosterone production is not as what it should be for a male, et cetera, et cetera. So there are this controversy will continue to carry on, because as soon as you get a trans athlete that wins a contest, particularly in female events, so the Skate Canada it's always a big challenge. Yes, and female athletes feel threatened by trans athletes. Of course they would, because you have people that were born at birth identified as male, and at a certain point in their development, testosterone kicks in and makes their muscles bigger and stronger. And even if you do stop that testosterone after a point, you still have built stronger and better muscles, as we saw by the swimming events and the weightlifting events of these trans athletes, the trans from male to female. Now, the problem from female to male is much less rigorously viewed, obviously, because being born a female and then injecting themselves with this is an opposite thing, because to maintain their maleness, if they want to go from female to male, to maintain that maleness, they don't have the capacity to make their own testosterone, so they have to have testosterone injected into them.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then how much testosterone is allowed to be injected into them, and how much of a difference will that make to their ability to do a sport. Now,
Well,
at this particular time, no amount of testosterone you add can make much of a difference. If you're a female that transitioned to a male, you're still not going to, for the most part, beat a male. But the other way around is
generally speaking, most women are 10 to 20% smaller than most men, right? And that's an average thing. Of course, you could go find a. I used to have a friend who was way bigger than me. She was probably 10 to 20% larger than me, right? So if
but her brother was probably 40% larger.
Possibly, yeah. But if she were to transition to a male, I'd have had hard trouble. You'd have had hard trouble wrestling her, man.
Yeah, well, like everybody's different. Like, for instance, different races. For instance, for sure, like a very large Western woman and a very small Eastern man might be about like 4'10" in Vietnam, and the woman from Sweden could be 6'6" and 250 pounds. Well, obviously the woman might have an advantage over the man in that particular case, but it's extraordinarily different. But we're talking apples to apples and oranges to oranges. What adding male-born people who were identified as males at birth, and then the transition process, it is brought up a lot of how unfair this is to women, and why women are women being victimized by this overall.
And if I wind back the clock to when I was active as a runner and doing fairly well, I would say that I was a pretty good runner. I could run a marathon at a reasonable pace, not the elite male pace. I could run my marathon at the elite female pace, right? Not the elite male pace, but had I trained a bit, maybe I could have become an elite male had I trained more, right? But elite female pace was still pretty good pace for a male to achieve.
Well, like even Venus Williams or Serena Williams, the tennis players.
Yeah.
When John McEnroe got in trouble for saying that the very, very best of the female tennis players would rank maybe 700th among the men.
Yeah.
And he got in a lot of trouble for doing that. I remember the female listening to that interview, and the female interviewer freaked on him, saying, you're a bigot and misogynist and all that, just freaked on him. But he says, no, that's realistic. And the Williams sisters have said exactly the same thing, that there is a huge difference. It's a different game. Female tennis and male tennis is a different game.
And just to answer this question,
and even in football and soccer, the U.S. female Olympic team got beat by a high school team of men.
Okay, and just to answer this question, if I may, Dave, right? Chris Simone is asking, did you run a sub 320 marathon? No, I ran a 330 marathon when the elite women were running 330 and 330. Basically men were doing it in 310 and I was doing it. No, men were doing it in 210.
You better write it down and then read it.
210. Let's get this correct. Men were doing it in about 2 hours and 10 minutes. I was doing it in about 2 hours and 30 minutes, right? Which was about the same as the elite females were doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Not three, two.
So anyway, the controversy hasn't changed.
Yeah.
The Skate Canada and the international skating organizations have decided that they have this inclusive policy, and they want to allow people who declare themselves female to,
Yeah.
or declare that were born males and declare themselves females as part of the female um, uh, to compete as females. But there is a
Yeah.
criteria that they have to meet, and that is going to be controversial forever and ever.
Always.
Because
Always.
when they had the male, can you remember when they had the weightlifting contest for women, and it was trans men that were winning it, I mean, or trans women that were winning it, male to female. So, and we saw this, of course, the famous swimming contest in the United States. I think it was Columbia University, where they were allowed the men to go into the women's change room because they,
in order to do that, you're going to end up having to have a trans changing room. In reality,
the very idea, though, that I don't know, this is going to be a continuous problem, and female athletes will feel themselves victimized by these pronouncements, where you can take a male, give him some, remove the testosterone as much as you can, and then have them compete. And the very day that a trans woman, a male to woman, wins, there's going to be an enormous controversy.
Yeah.
There already was. There's always suspicions now of some athletes who are more mannish. But I will point this out, and this is very important, that the best women athletes to date are women that usually have a higher than average testosterone content in their makeup. So women, like men, have both estrogen and testosterone, but women have a certain level of testosterone. What some studies have discovered so far is that those women who are very good athletes usually have a higher level of testosterone than average.
Yeah.
So if you take a person who has had testosterone from the beginning of life, a more than average amount, a male, basically, and then try to transition them, the testosterone has already made that difference in building the muscles.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's move on from that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hey, strong winds toppled the Statue of Liberty, but it's not the one in New York. This is in a Brazilian city of Guabia. I probably mispronounced that. And they have a fake copy of the famous statue, and it blew over.
It reminded me of the Statue of Liberty on Saul Goodman's legal office in Albuquerque. I don't know if you saw Breaking Bad, but the lawyer Saul Goodman had this inflatable Statue of Liberty. And when I saw that picture of the one falling down in Brazil, that reminded me of that.
I don't remember that one, but I saw this one in Brazil, and I thought, okay, let's talk. And the interesting thing is about this Statue of Liberty is there's a picture of it where it's still mostly standing, and behind it there's a video. There's a sign for a bank. And there's also a McDonald's sign right there. So just next to the Statue of Liberty, you can go get your McDonald's.
Yeah. So basically, they have. Now, why did this particular? It's a shopping center or something, isn't it?
Yeah, and something like that. Yeah.
And whoever decided that it would be a good idea to put a Statue of Liberty right in the middle of it. What kind of significance does the Statue of Liberty have to Brazilians? That part I don't get. And why does the Statue of Liberty somehow bring more clientele into a shopping center? That's the other thing I don't get.
Yeah.
And because it's obviously a gimmick. And who the hell let them build it without proper oversight to make sure it doesn't fall down when the wind comes up.
Three very good questions. Yeah. Particularly the last one, without the oversight to make it sure it doesn't damn well fall down. I get that,
How to get through the building code.
Those wavy balloons that you get where you throw hot air into this thing and it stands there and waves at you, the Midas man who's waving at you, come on in, right? I get that. But this isn't a wavy balloon Statue of Liberty, but it looks as if it was when it blew over.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It's solid. And and it's a pretty good likeness of from what the picture here has. Pretty good likeness, even the pedestal where it's on.
Yeah, it is.
The McDonald's right underneath. Drive through McDonald's right underneath it.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, okay, I see where the McDonald's is. Yeah. I hadn't noticed that before you pointed it out. Thank you.
And then they had to evacuate the whole area to get people out of there because they might be killed by the Statue of Liberty falling down on them.
But there's a car that it falls down right next to a car. And it doesn't seem as if the car was damaged in any way.
Oh, they're lucky then because there's a little film here too. Here it goes. There it goes. Oh, right on. Oh, the Statue of Liberty's head hurts now because her head fell off when it hit the ground. It went like this, completely like that.
Yeah. I don't know. How can you build something? I get the building something like that. Maybe it's called Liberty Center Shopping Mall, right?
I don't know. It's an American icon that the French built the Statue of Liberty and gave it to the United States on their 100th birthday in 1876. And of course, it's been a kind of an icon ever since. And in the U.S. or New York Harbor, but what that American icon is doing in the middle of Brazil, I don't know. I mean, what possible significance does it have?
Yeah,
and then of course but it was just it's just a hook to get people into that area for shopping, I guess. And then, of course, they didn't build it right, and it fell down as soon as the winds got strong.
Yeah, and the interesting picture is the first when they got this first picture of it. The thing's at an angle, so it's like this anyway.
It's already beginning to go.
Yeah, it's already partway gone.
It's pretty big.
It's
pretty big. It looked like it gives the dimensions here or something.
It does. It's about 70 meters. 70 meters high.
It was 78 feet high.
78 feet high. Yeah. Okay. 24 meters high, which is pretty damn big.
And the pedestal itself is 36 feet. So of course the pedestal didn't fall down, but the statue on top of it did. So the statue was up 36 feet before it began to fall, and right on its own head.
Yeah. Wouldn't like to see this at all. I'm glad nobody was hurt by the looks of it.
Lady Liberty has got one hell of a headache.
I'm sure she does. Will they rebuild it? That's a big question.
I think there maybe there may be a question or two from the city council down there who approved this.
Yeah, certainly we'd be making such questions as well. Okay, we've got a lot of big discussion going on, and I will leave those to first law of thermodynamics. One can neither create nor destroy energy. Yeah,
that's true. That's Newtonian law. Newtonian physics, yeah.
Well, just right. the energy sheared across this thing at quite a rate and pushed it down. All right.
In this case, the Statue of Liberty can be created and destroyed.
Yeah. All right, moving on. I thought that was just interesting. So, okay, so there's some new citizenship rules effective Monday. All right.
So legal eagle, tell us what that means.
Well, basically, what they're saying is that they. One of the things I've noticed they're talking here about for years, outdated rules have left many individuals, often referred to as lost Canadians, in limbo, denying them citizenship that they rightfully deserve. So they're looking at this new legislation is to correct that. So what I'm guessing is that we've got people who no longer live in Canada but were born to Canadian parentage, etc., that are now being essentially repatriated back into Canadians. So if you're a Canadian living abroad and have family ties overseas, or simply curious about how those changes might affect you, that's what they're basically saying. They published this new guide, and essentially it benefits. It was to receive royal assent November 20th. Was introduced June 5th, and is now and effective immediately as of December 15th.
So it
Right.
has to
And
do with lost Canadians. Can you describe that for us?
yeah, so for individuals born or adopted before December 15th of 25, the bill automatically grants citizenships to those who were previously excluded by the first generation limit or other outdated rules. So that's essentially what they're doing, is bringing back some Canadians who were born abroad to parents who themselves were born or adopted overseas, right? So now it's giving them rights as Canadian citizens. I'm sure this is going, I don't know how this is going to actually play out, because if you're living abroad, you might not realize you've got these citizenship rights anyway.
Yeah, there's a similar thing happening in the United States where they're actually extending the ability for people who are, in this particular case, the ones I know that were Canadian. So the people who were born to a Canadian mother or father or parents and born in the States, they can get their citizenship, but now their kids can too, and that's new. So
Yeah.
now kids, even though they've never lived in Canada, they have Canadian citizenship, and now their kids can get that too. So you
Yeah.
can have 2 or 3 generations living in the United States that don't have Canadian, that now have Canadian citizenship.
Yeah. And this is about streamlining. They were talking about streamlining the process. So for those who reducing wait times, administrative burdens, for those who basically want to get their citizenship. Additionally, for those who gain citizenship but want to renounce it, perhaps due to dual citizenship conflicts, a simplified renunciation process is also available.
Yeah. It's easier to renunciate your Canadian citizenship if you wish. We found
Yeah.
a little bit of a raft of that happening in the United States, but not for the reasons why you think. There was in the States, there was like this idea that people will renunciate their citizenship after Trump got in because he's going to be an authoritarian and they can move somewhere else. Well, some of that happened, but very, very little. Most of
Yeah.
the renunciation of U.S. citizenship happens because they move their money into Mexico or other Latin American or other places. And if they renunciate their U.S. citizenship, then they don't have to pay U.S. taxes. Because once you're an American citizen, no matter where you make your money or how you make your money, you have to pay taxes on it. But to be able to dodge the tax and keep more of your money, a lot of people renunciate their American citizenship, take up Mexican or Guatemalan or I don't know, whatever else,
Right.
wherever they think they're safe. You know.
I just realized we're at 7 minutes past 8 and I've got to get going.
Oh, yes. Well, okay. Without further
Right.
ado, I bid you adieu, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for contributing comments. And if there are topics in which you wish us to look into, let us know.
I
And
think the global warming is something that I think I'd like our climate person to actually send us some information about his concerns about climate change.
yeah, and it continues to be a problem, and there's no real quick fix for it.
And what
my idea that you have to have a certain amount of wealth in order to be able to do something about it, and that wealth, unfortunately, in Canada, a significant part of it is earned from oil. So
yeah.
it's kind of like a catch-22.
All right, and let's talk about your friend coming on tomorrow.
I haven't told him yet.
Oh,
so it'll be tomorrow, Friday. I'll see if he's available.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's not always available, and so I'll ask him if he wants to come on. Right after the show, I'll phone him.
All right.
Anyway, we'll talk about that, and we'll bring up Gaza. We brought up how the Israelis are trying to erase the presence of Palestinians and make it impossible for them to live in their own land, and that continues. And anyway, BB, I can't even go into it. Anyway, don't forget Gaza.
All right, and have a great day, everybody.